Hello and welcome back to another Magic the Gathering EDH deck tech idea. Today we are taking a look at Rendmaw, Creaking Nest. It is a 5 mana 5/5 with Menace and Reach, and when it enters and whenever you play a card with 2 or more card types, each player creates a tapped 2/2 Blackbird creature token with flying. The tokens are goaded for the rest of the game. This Golgari commander forces our opponents to fight against each other with the birds that we give them, and along the way we want to control the board, profit from our opponents fighting against each other, and at some point go for the final Overrun effect. Once we have ramped out Rendmaw, we want to play cards with different card types to flood the board with tokens. Cards that we want to play, for example, are Haywire Might, a 1 mana 1/1, and when it dies you gain 2 life. For 1 green mana you can sacrifice it to exile target non-creature artifact or non-creature enchantment. Important about this card is that it has 2 card types, so for 1 mana we will put 8 total power and toughness onto the battlefield if we are in a 4-player game. We play a lot of different lands that have 2 card types, for example Darkmoss Bridge, an artifact land that enters tapped, it is indestructible and it can make 2 kinds of mana. We also play Dryad Arbor, a land creature that is a 1/1. You can work a lot with tribal cards in this deck, for example with Lignify, a 2 mana tribal enchantment and enchant creature. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a tree folk with base power and toughness 0/4. We also play Trickster's Elk, a 3 mana 3/3 with Bestow, so you can cast it as an aura spell. An enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a green elk creature with base power and toughness 3/3. Helpful in our early game are for example cards like Coppermere, a 2 mana 1/1 which is in Mana Dog, but it is also an artifact creature. Once we start to produce those bird tokens we want to overwhelm our opponents as fast as possible, so we also help out with cards like Primal Vigor, a 5 mana enchantment, and if 1 or more tokens would be put onto the battlefield, twice that many of those tokens are put onto the battlefield instead. Furthermore, if 1 or more +1/+1 counters would be placed on a creature, twice that many +1/+1 counters are placed on that creature instead. We do play this card simply for the reason that it also counts for our opponents, so they will make twice that many bird tokens instead. And we don't care about that since those tokens are goaded. Our opponents will fight against each other with those bird tokens, so we also play Griswold, the Dreadsower, a 3 mana 3/3 with trample, and at the beginning of your end step each player creates a 1/1 green plant creature token. And the relevant thing is, whenever a creature token dies, put a 1/1 counter on Griswold the Dreadsower. This guy will grow to a threat really quickly. One of our Overrun effects is Overwhelming Stampede, a 5 mana sorcery. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. One of your win cons is definitely Coat of Arms, a 5 mana artifact, and each creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature on the battlefield that shares at least 1 creature type with it, so all those bird tokens will buff each other up. A one-sided effect is Beastmaster Ascension, a 3 mana enchantment, and whenever a creature you control attacks, you may put a quest counter on Beastmaster Ascension. As long as Beastmaster Ascension has 7 or more quest counters on it, creatures you control get +5/+5. And our last Overrun effect is Triumph of the Hordes, a 4 mana sorcery. Until end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample and infect. And now let's talk about Carddraw in this deck. We play Babali Saga, Night Witch, a 3 mana 3/3, and we can tap her and sacrifice up to 3 permanents. If there were 3 or more card types among the sacrificed permanents, each opponent loses 3 life, you gain 3 life and you draw 3 cards. It is quite easy for us to enable this, simply because this whole deck is built around card types, and we got some cards to spare. Death Reap Ritual, a 4 mana enchantment with Morbid. At the beginning of each end step, if a creature died this turn, you may draw a card. This might turn into a permanent card draw effect simply because your opponents have to fight each other with those bird tokens, so creatures are definitely about to die. We play Morbid Opportunist, a 3 mana 1/3, and whenever 1 or more other creatures die, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. Black Market Connections is great to accelerate our game plan and also draw us cards. For 3 mana you get an enchantment. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, choose 1 or more. Either you create a treasure token and lose 1 life, you draw a card and lose 2 life, or you create a 3/2 colorless shapeshifter creature token with Changeling, and then you lose 3 life. Due to the fact that it has every creature type, there's also a nice synergy with Coat of Arms. We also play Pact of the Serpent, a 3-mana sorcery. Choose a creature type. Target player draws X cards and loses X life, where X is the number of creatures they control of the chosen type. And we play Shamanic Revelation, a 5-mana sorcery. Draw a card for each creature you control. It also has Ferocious, so you gain 4 life for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. You want to win more? You get it. Toski, Bearer of Secrets, a 4-mana 1/1. This spell can't be countered, it is indestructible, it attacks each combat if able, and whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. A lot of action is happening in the air with all of those bird tokens, and due to those tokens being goaded, it will most likely always be tapped in your turn, so you can swing in and draw some cards. Roaming Throne, a 4-mana 4/4 with Ward 2, and as it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Roaming Throne is the chosen type in addition to its other types, and if a triggered ability of another creature you control of the chosen type triggers, it triggers an additional time. As soon as your commander has a powerful triggered ability, it always makes sense to play Roaming Throne to simply double those triggers. We also play Maron of Clan Neltoff, a 4-mana 3/4, and whenever another creature you control dies, you get an experience counter. At the beginning of your end step, choose target creature card in your graveyard. If that card's mana value is less than or equal to the number of experience counters you have, return it to the battlefield. Otherwise, put it into your hand. Due to the fact that we also play a lot of different small creatures with more card types, we will have no problem to sacrifice them into Babali Saga, for example, to get some experience counters, draw a lot of cards, and then bring them back with Maron. We also play Arasta of the Endless Web, a 4-mana 3/5 with Reach, and whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/2 green spider creature token with Reach. Not only does this creature have several card types, it also creates an army of blockers that also have Reach for the endgame scenario when it turns into a 1v1. We also play Braids, Arisen Nightmare, a 3-mana 3/3, and at the beginning of your end step you may sacrifice an artifact, creature, enchantment, land or planeswalker. If you do, each opponent may sacrifice a permanent that shares a card type with it. For each opponent who doesn't, that player loses 2 life and you draw a card. This powerful card draw engine is great in this deck, as you also create those bird tokens which you can sacrifice into Braids. And another great game finisher is Isuri's Predation, an 8-mana sorcery. For each creature your opponents control, create a 4/4 green Phyrexian beast creature token. Each of those tokens fight a different one of those creatures. If your opponents have an army of birds out and you put an Isuri's Predation, you will be left with an army of 4/4s and your opponents will have nothing left on their board. Alright guys, these were a few cards that I would play in Rendmaw, Creaking Nest. Make sure to check out my deck list in the notes below. Let me know which cards you would add to the deck, which legendary creature I shall feature next, and then I would say, see you in the next one. Goodbye guys.